How do you convince a nation to study the Gospels when they don't even have a written language? Well, for one saint the answer was simple. Learn their language fluently, create an entire alphabet from scratch, move there permanently, become their bishop, and teach them all to read. By the 14th century, Orthodox Christianity had grown into the far north and into the east. Many people groups were still following the old shamanistic pagan religions, and while they had interactions with the Russian-speaking Christians, they didn't necessarily understand their religion. In the area known as Perm lived the Syrian people, also known as the Komi, and they traveled far and wide selling their local furs. Thousands of miles from their home in a small town, they encountered a young, curious boy at the marketplace, who became their friend. He steadily got a grasp on their language and decided to make himself a promise that he would dedicate his life to bringing to these people the love of Christ. This boy grew up to become Saint Stephan of Perm, a powerful missionary saint of the Orthodox Church. As a young man, Stephan became a monk. In the monastery, he set about for 10 years preparing for his mission trip to the Komi people. His first challenge was that the Komi, or the Syrians, did not have a written language. There was no alphabet. Their language was entirely spoken only. Stephan knew that for Christianity to take root in the hearts of this people and to become organically part of their lives, it had to be in a way that they understood. Well, rather than teaching them Slavonic or Greek, both of which were languages that Stephan was fluent in, he decided to create an entirely new alphabet that would be understandable by the people of Perm. To do this, he looked at their art, their textiles, their clothing, their symbols, signs that they recognized, paying attention to what they were called in that language so that he could quickly create an associated pattern, combining these ancient Komi runes with elements that he understood from Greek and Slavonic. He created an alphabet unique to the people, one that could be easily taught to a Komi speaker, as they could quickly understand which letter and which symbol meant which sound. Having created the alphabet, he then translated all 4 of the Gospels into that new written language. He translated the Divine Liturgy into that new written language, as well as entire services and other books of the Bible. By the time St. Stephan arrived in Perm, he was fully armed with a distinct knowledge of the local dialect and with texts written in that language. Upon his arrival in Perm, the Komi people at first greeted him with a little bit of suspicion. They had not had much experience with outsiders, with Russians, and they had never met a Russian before who came to them for any reason other than wanting to buy their furs. And they had never met a foreigner who arrived in their land speaking their language. And slowly, piece by piece, Christianity began to take root in Perm amongst the Komi people as more and more people came to meet this strange man who spoke their tongue and was teaching them a way that they could all now begin to read. St. Stephan of Perm was introducing to them the one for whom they had been waiting unknowingly for their entire existence, Jesus Christ himself. And it was with beauty that Stephan first began to draw their attention towards the true beauty of Jesus. He built a small wooden church that was seen from a distance as being a very pretty and attractive building. He filled this little church with icons. Some of them would have been his own handiwork, because apart from being a talented linguist, St. Stephan was also an iconographer. This beautiful building and these beautiful images encouraged more and more people to come in pursuit of that beauty and uncover more beauty than they had ever thought of before. And the beauty of the Christian faith was quickly taking root in Perm. This was not an easy, simple, straightforward process. There arose a sort of a battle between the ancient gods of the Syrians and the god of Christianity. For instance, there was a sacred birch tree worshipped by the people as an idol. St. Stephan set about breaking the tyrannical rule of these ancient gods and proving to the people that they had nothing to fear from them. And as the people waited to see if their gods would retaliate, and none did, they soon began to see that this Christian god was something far more powerful than what they were used to. The most powerful opponent that St. Stephan came across was a local sorcerer or shaman named Pansontic. And Pansontic was trying to preach against this coming of Christianity and used a variety of different means to do it. One of his early insults to St. Stephan was that He was just a young man and a foreigner, and Pansontic tried and sometimes was successful to pull people away from the newly formed Christian communities. Eventually, Stefan reached out to Pansontic with a challenge. Let us go into this burning building together. Let us swim under the frozen ice of the river. The one who comes out unscathed from a burning house and from a frozen river is the one whose God is truly protecting him. Now, at first, Pansontic accepted the invitation. This was a chance to prove what he knew to be true. But as the challenge grew closer and closer, he began to waver a little, and eventually making an excuse that, well, I don't know this type of sorcery that Stefan clearly has been trained in. This would not be fair. But this excuse didn't go down very well with the people of Perm, who quickly realized that this sorcerer is teaching us something that he himself does not believe, that he's not willing to take this risk. And increasingly, St. Stefan was making more sense than Pansontic. Eventually, Pansontic left the region entirely, and more churches continued to grow. These churches were being led by native Komi priests, trained by St. Stefan, who by this point had been made Bishop of Perm. A region that had been somewhat vague on the maps now took shape. Stefan was known throughout the region as a man of kindness and of mercy, who paid attention to the individual needs of the various families that he looked after. He visited the sick and he cared for the dying. And he became an advocate for the Komi people far beyond their borders. When there was a year of bad harvest, it was the Bishop Stefan who travelled 1,000 kilometers to come and bring back grain. When the Komi fur traders were being attacked by river pirates, it was St. Stefan of Perm who travelled 2,000 kilometers to bring back armed protection for his people and save them from the pirates. This wasn't just a case of a learned man who was teaching the right things. This was a case of a person who lived and became a part of their community, understanding their language and their customs and their personality, and becoming a member of that family. He committed his entire lifetime to them. When St. Stefan arrived in Perm, it was a vague area on the maps of Siberia. By the time he had died, Perm was the center of a Christian culture, a national identity that was recognized far beyond its borders. His alphabet remained in constant use for several centuries after his death, and has resulted in the continuation of the Komi identity until this day. Stefan had transformed the region of Perm. The fear of death and of darkness and of the old pagan gods, those things St. Stefan banished from the Permian people. He saved them from those things. But the things that were beautiful about them, their personalities, their love of peace, their love of the world around them, their symbols, their clothing, their traditions, the things that were good, he not only kept, but he made them last longer, because now Christ was at the center of what it meant to be a person of Perm, to be a member of the Komi people, to be a Syrian. St. Stefan loved Christ, and he is the gold standard for what Christian mission should be. When you go to a foreign country, when you go to a different people, and you want to introduce them to the love of Christ, you don't enforce your culture and your understanding on them. You learn theirs, you learn their language, you learn the way they see the world, and you bring Christ to them, because Christ belongs with everyone. His name should be praised in every language of the earth, in every culture of the world. Every culture of this world will be fulfilled in him. True Christian mission is born of love. This was a very important episode for us to do. St. Stefan of Perm was a major inspiration years before we were born to our dad, and I was named after St. Stefan of Perm. He is my patron saint and has been an example to me in my life in more ways than 100. I'm so blessed and honored to be making patristics, to be telling these stories with my brother behind the camera, my sister-in-law behind the camera, and a lot of what we do is inspiration from St. Stefan of Perm and how he inspired our dad in his ministry. So it's a true honor to share with you one of my favorite people in history. Thank you very much for watching. We do of course have a cup of tea with this episode, which is a rooibos and blood orange mix, and I really like rooibos. If you've watched this show for a while, you know I mention this kind of tea fairly often. I grew up with this icon. This is the oldest icon in our family.